People are asking, why am I making videos airing the dirty laundry of Church Militant? I've been accused of the sin of distraction, and I've been described as a disgruntled ex-employee of Church Militant. Why am I kicking Church Militant when it's down? I don't recall the reporting of Church Militant ever giving a benefit of the doubt to all the bishops and priests. I don't recall Michael Voris ever giving the benefit of doubt in his series, The Vortex. Now, since the shoe is on the other foot, I am held at a different standard than Church Militant. If you get anything out of this whole entire Church Militant mess, it's this. Do your due diligence about who you're giving your hard-earned money to. I was on the inside. I observed and heard the very hypocrisy that Voris called out the priests and bishops for doing. Was there good work going on inside a Church Militant? Yes, of course, definitely. But the good staff that was trying to do their very best was kept in the dark about the finances and the mismanagement by the board. As a matter of fact, we were all kept in the dark about many things. As I had said in my other video, I've got 4 decades of corporate insurance experience. And yes, every organization has its dysfunctional areas, but the entirety of Church Militant is dysfunctional. It was held together by a Band-Aid, waiting for it to be ripped off by a scandal that everyone inside knew was brewing, but no one had the courage, including me, to confront Michael Voris. That's the truth, folks, whether you want to hear it or not. That's the truth. Today, with the help of investigative journalist Kristine Christlieb, who was laid off from Church Militant in March of this year, we will delve into how the board not only neglected the good employees of Church Militant, but they didn't protect the good employees either. That's why the entire board must be replaced. Kristine has an extensive background in the nonprofit sector. She's an expert in this field, and she'll help us understand why and how the board members of Church Militant failed. In the last decade, the board members met one time. That's it. There were no regular monthly or quarterly meetings. The board did not vote on finances nor hold Voris accountable for finances. So in essence, Voris did what he thought best without input or approval from the board. 2 independent sources told me this story. Think of James O'Keefe and Project Veritas. In O'Keefe's case, the board stepped up to hold James accountable for his out-of-control spending. That's what a board is supposed to do. But this didn't happen at Church Militant. Before we bring Kristine in, one more thing. Stay to the end because there's more breaking news, and I'd like to address some of your comments. Kristine, thank you for coming back to Eternal Life Plan.
Right. Where we were 8 months ago.
Pardon me?
I said, here we were 8 months ago.
Oh, you are so
about everyone being laid off. In fact, I would really encourage people to go back and watch that interview because some of the things we talked about 8 months ago are happening as we talked about.
Well, Kristine, let me ask you, where was I wrong in the monologue?
Oh, well, as far as I know, of course, I'm not privy to some of the information that you have, but as far as I know, completely accurate. People at church, employees at Church Militant, we weren't very well informed. And I would just say, one of the things that people who are defending, you know, the Catholic hierarchy will say is, well, look at how much good the Catholic Church does. You know, why would you criticize the church? It does so much good, the hospitals and so on. Nevertheless, you know, Church Militant has felt the Catholic Church was fair game. And as you say, the shoe is on the other foot now. So Church Militant has done some good. I mean, no question about it. Many people felt like their faith has grown because of the teaching of Church Militant. Plus, victims, clergy abuse victims, have felt like Church Militant was one of the places where they were genuinely heard. But that does not excuse a lot of the things that went on. So no, you were right on.
Okay, thank you, Kristine. And I really want you to help me and help the audience understand exactly what a board is supposed to do for an organization like Church Militant or any other nonprofit. So I want to point out to everybody, if you'll give me a minute, I'd like to take you to Kristine's newest article on Trust But Verify, which is her Substack. And I want to encourage you all, if you have not subscribed to Kristine's Substack, you should absolutely do that. She's a phenomenal investigative reporter. And frankly, I'm envious by the way that she writes, because she is such an astounding writer. But here is her article. And if you don't mind, Kristine, I would like to just read a few of this, okay?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I thought I was sharing it, and then I wasn't. Amidst the hand-wringing over Michael Voris' ouster last week, there's been little analysis of the board of directors' role in the meltdown or what the future holds for the organization. So for the moment, let's set aside the question of what did Voris do, and instead ask, what did the board of directors do and what should be done now? And that's where I want you to get into what the board of directors should do now, Kristine.
Well, in my opinion, what the board of directors should do now is resign. Every one of them, except for Mark Rivard. Mark Rivard is an independent board member, and I think he should stay. It makes sense for him to stay. But all the other board members are employees of the organization and have a direct conflict of interest. And of course, I was assuming all along that this board was actually meeting. But, you know, according to the information that you have, they weren't meeting at all. So all these people who you know, are named as board members and have that responsibility and liability have just been absent. They have really let down the donors because their job, they have a fiduciary responsibility to oversee, you know, the financial aspects of the organization, plus oversee to supervise the CEO, who is, you know, obviously Michael Voris. If they had been doing that all along, if they'd been doing their job, this might have been averted. You know, it could have been that they could have spotted some problems, you know, back 6 or 7 years ago and, you know, insisted that Michael get some help. But apparently they were just completely absent, which is honestly shocking.
I agree. And would you mind sharing with the audience? I know this is public information, just so people don't have to look it up. Who are the board members?
Yeah. Oh boy, I'm going to have to say off the top of my head. Now, these are the board members that were identified in a report that St. Michael's Media is required to file with the state of Michigan. Okay. So this report was filed as of June. As you know, Kristine, I am, and in my article, I mentioned I tried to get verification of if whether any new members had come on or someone had gone off. But Mike Sherry, who's supposedly the new president, didn't respond to my email request. But okay, so let's go through it. It's Michael Voris. He is president. Phil Hoppola is treasurer. Mary McCann is secretary. Then there is Christine Niles, Mike Sherry, Susan Vance, Charlie Hornbacher. Let's see, there's Mark, and there is one other. Can you scroll through my article? And because I've got them bullet pointed.
Oh, sure. Hold on. And
I'm missing somebody.
I did verify by multiple sources that Kristine Niles actually resigned from the board a few months ago.
Oh, okay.
I did get that. Here they are.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You can probably see it. I can't.
Oh, okay. Michael Voris is the president. Philip is the treasurer. Charles is not listed as a other than a board member. Mary McCann, Christine Niles, Mark Rivard, Mike Sherry, and Susan Vance. And this was as of June of 2023. So correct. I guess it was a couple of months later that, as I was told by multiple sources, that allegedly Christine Niles resigned from the board. So that would, leave an opening, I guess, or maybe they just won't replace her. Who knows?
Yeah. They're only required to have 3. So they may not replace her, but yeah, that's interesting. Okay. So as of June, she was there, but somewhere between June and November, she resigned.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Okay. Got it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So typically a board is going to have, different committees that have different functions. For example, you would have a finance committee. That finance committee would, oversee investments, would put forward a budget for the organization, oversee that budget, oversee the financials on at least a quarterly basis. Most organizations, I shouldn't say most. Some organizations meet monthly. Now, it could be a finance committee might meet monthly, whereas, the entire board might meet just quarterly. But the point is, there would be oversight of the finances through a finance committee, and then there would be a nominating committee and so on. So none of that existed. None of that existed. Not to mention the fact that, shockingly, according to your sources, they weren't even meeting, which, as I understand it, and of course I'm no attorney, but from what it looks like to me, they are required. The Internal Revenue Code requires them to meet at least annually. So if they're not meeting, I don't believe they're in compliance.
Well, here's another area they're not in compliance, Kristine, and let me pull that up as well. And this is the governance and related topics for 501c3 organizations. And this was produced by the IRS. You can download this. This is actually public information, good governance practices. Now, here is the part that I found very interesting. And that is this right here, Kristine, ethics and whistleblower policy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it says that the public expects a charity to abide by ethical standards that promote the public good. The organization's governing body bears the ultimate responsibility for setting ethical standards and ensuring they permeate the organization and inform its practices. The Internal Revenue Service encourages a charity board or trustees to consider adopting and regularly evaluating a code of ethics that describes behavior it wants to encourage and behavior it wants to discourage. But then it gets down here. Such policies are sometimes referred to as whistleblower policies. So the Internal Revenue Services encourages whistleblower policies. So I would like you to address what happened when you brought this to the attention of Simon Rafe.
Yeah. Well, I went to Simon, and quite honestly, I had concerns about Michael.
And Kristine, when was this?
Oh, wow. I wish I could tell you. It was obviously, I would say, I'm confident it was sometime in 2022.
Okay.
But I had some concerns about Michael. I did not share them with Simon. But in that conversation, I was saying to him, you know, you need a whistleblower policy. No, we don't, you know, we've looked into that. We don't think we need we don't think we need that. So that was one of if there had been a whistleblower policy, I would have reported my concerns. Okay. But if the only way to report the concerns was to report them to Simon Rafe, I was not comfortable with that at all. I was not comfortable. And of course, I shouldn't say who would be, but that's the reason that you want a whistleblower policy, so that there's an independent an independent body that conducts the investigation, so that you're not, Simon was the person who was in charge of what my raises were. You know, he pretty much set my salary. Why would any employee, take that risk? And so that's why corporations have whistleblower policies, so that people can comfortably come forward. But, Simon didn't feel like they needed it. He said to me, if someone has a problem with me, they can go to Michael. If someone has a problem with Michael, they can come to me. Well, so I did not have the courage to move forward with that. So I never said what my concerns were. I did say they were about Michael.
Do you mind sharing your concerns now?
Yeah, I don't think I want to do that.
Okay.
I might do it at, if another person, the person in question gives me the okay, I'll talk about it. But it has to do with, the atmosphere and the culture in the pit. Yeah.
Okay.
And just how Michael conducted himself at times, inappropriately in my, and I will mention one incident, where Michael was upset about something, and he had instructed Stephen Wynn. He had like 6 or 7 things from the previous night's show that he had a problem with. And so he had identified the individuals who were behind these problems. And so he went around, the pit in the meeting and basically said, Kristine, why did you misspell that word? and you know, just grilling people, and made one of my colleagues, a female colleague, cry. And I went to Kristine Niles after that meeting, and I said, I will never, and I can't remember who else I told, maybe Simon. I think I told Simon, I said, I will never sit in one of those meetings again. If something like that happens again, I will leave. I will not watch that. And I described it as like a Chinese struggle session, you know, like putting dunce caps on us and making us stand on a stool or something. I mean, it was very unprofessional. But that was one kind of problem, okay, with Michael and with Stephen, frankly, for following through on that. You know, I mean, Stephen could have objected, you know, and he wouldn't have even had to have, you know, like directly said no. He could have just said, hey, Michael, you know, let's think about this for a minute. You know, why don't you sleep on it? And then if you still feel like you want me to do that, yeah, let's talk about it. Do you know what I mean? There are ways to manage that without directly being insubordinate to your superior. Because for one thing, you know, Michael's kind of fiery personality, you know, it's a double-edged sword. It's what got viewers, okay? But, you know, it had a darker side. But that could very well be what, you know, your right-hand man, that could be his job, is to manage that darker side of Michael. And frankly, after that, we really didn't have anything like that again. Very honestly, we didn't have anything that bad again. I hope I've answered your question a little bit.
You did. Would you say then that leadership and the board enabled Michael in his behavior then?
Oh, absolutely. Totally enabling, you know, completely enabling. There's no better word to describe what was going on except enabling.
Okay. Because I know the short time I worked there, I felt like there was no HR department, there's no whistleblower clause, there's no protection at all.
No guardrails.
Right. The few times I expressed my concern to leadership, it was not received real well. So in essence, we were just to do our work and shut up and keep our eyes down and not notice what was going on.
Oh, and you know, Kristine, I think one of the reasons, you know, of course, that maybe we had the feelings that we did, as opposed to, you know, it was a room full of young people who hadn't had that much life or work experience, who probably weren't entirely sure if that sort of thing was okay or not, you know, you know, hadn't had yet that many role models in the workplace. But, you know, of course, you and I have. And so we could just say, time out, you know, that's probably not okay. Yeah.
For the viewers, just to give you an idea of the atmosphere inside what they called the pit, that's where the reporters sat. And the studio had TV monitors all the way around. Those TV monitors were blaring news channels all the time. I mean, it was so loud in the studio with those TV monitors that most people had headsets on to try to block that noise so they could concentrate and do their jobs. And the funny part of it all is, you know, Michael wasn't there 50% of the time, but yet those TVs had to be blaring all the time. Although I remember one time when they had the TVs turned off, and then someone's like, Michael's coming, and then on went the TVs.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It almost felt like an abusive household you lived in.
You know, and in Michael's defense, I mean, he was trying to create an atmosphere that, although a lot of the guys said, well, you know, he's back in the 90s, you know, he doesn't know what, what media out, you know, what that sort of atmosphere is currently. But, you know, he was trying to create that, that awareness, you know, you're constantly connected to the news feed. You've got to know what's going on all the time. You need to be listening all the time, you know, and that wasn't bad, but it was, but here's the thing. Michael needed to be aware of the stress that places on his employees, and that maybe you might want to give them a few extra days vacation, or, you know, do something to help them recover psychologically, emotionally from that bombardment. I mean, everybody knows, I mean, you can read anywhere that if you watch the news too much, it's going to have an effect on you psychologically.
Oh, absolutely. Even now, you know, I sometimes have to take a month off and not even look at any news at all to try to tell myself that, you know, the world isn't collapsing around me. You know? Yeah. Because it does feel that way sometimes, that the world is collapsing around you. Yeah. And, you know, Michael, in Michael's defense, he created a really good training video for reporters that I watched, I think 3 or 4 times. It was hours long, but he's a very good at teaching.
He is.
And I wish Michael would have not gone into scream mode as often as he did, because he was such a good teacher and explaining how. And I remember one time in one of the PIP meetings, he said, you need to learn how the world works. Mm-hmm. And that really, I thought that was a profound statement, because I had never thought about that before. You know, here I am in my 60s and I'm thinking, wow, I've never thought about how the world works. You know, although you and I have a corporate background, we know how that works. Yeah. But he was coming from the perspective of all of the propaganda in the news, and you got to be able to read through it and be able to recognize it. And there's a reason why they're putting out this or that. So, you know, I don't want this to sound like that, you know, Voris has no redeeming qualities, because he has a lot of good qualities, but he also hurt a lot of people within the studio as well. And that's really, and the board didn't protect him. The board didn't protect him. So let's get back to the 990s. So would you explain what the 990 is, and would you explain, given the information I was given, that, you know, in the last decade, the board's only met one time?
Unbelievable. Yeah, I still, Kristine, think about how I reacted when you told me that.
You said,
I don't believe it.
Yeah, I can't believe it. There's no way.
I don't believe it.
Well, it was hard for me to believe too, because I've been on 2 boards and we met monthly. I mean, you know, it wasn't like, and they were, one was larger than Church Militant and one was smaller than Church Militant, but we met every single month. We had to prioritize it. So you know,
here's my thing, Kristine. I, like I said, I'm no lawyer, but yikes, that seems like just flat out negligence. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, so that is scary negligence.
Yeah, I'd like for you to talk about that.
Yeah. Well, let me just say a word about the 990s. Of course, that is the form that every nonprofit organization has to file with the Internal Revenue. It's their tax return. Even though they're tax exempt, they have to file this 990. And, of course, there have been changes to it over the years, but, mostly it's the same. And so that 990, so the most recent one that is available, either on the IRS site or on GuideStar for St. Michael's Media, is for 2021, which is now, 3 years away. But even looking at that, their most recent 990, a number of questions arise. And I'll tie them to the board responsibilities here in a second. So, for example, and this is the 2021 990 for St. Michael's Media. Okay. So the very first section is a summary section where it gives you a summary of revenue, liabilities and net assets and so on. So, and it has a number of other important summary information, like the number of board members, the number of independent board members, the number of employees. So if you're a person, just a regular donor, you can learn a lot just by looking at that very first opening summary page. But so I'm looking at the summary page, and the first thing I see is it asks for the website, and the website Church Militant gives for St. Michael's Media is the onetruefaith.tv. Not churchmilitant.com, but the onetruefaith.tv. So I thought, I wonder what that is. So of course I go to look for it, and it doesn't exist anymore. I don't know what that site was, but again, it's interesting that they're sending the Internal Revenue Service to the onetruefaith.tv, not Church Militant. So, okay, so that's one question mark. Then the next thing I noticed is that in part one of the summary page, it talks about your investment income. So Church Militant in 2021 had revenue of about $5 million, okay? Or it had contributions and other kinds of revenue that added up to about $5 million. Now, but it had zero investment income. So, as I say, I'm no lawyer and I'm not an accountant either. Okay. But it did seem odd to me that you've got $5 million floating around and zero investment income. So does that mean $5 million was sitting around in a checking account? Nothing was even put in a money market account? That there would end up zero income. Now allow me to tie that to the board's function. Most boards are going to have a finance committee with a banker and somebody who does, an investment guy and, all of that. Well, those folks are going to say, well, can't we put at least some of this into a money market account? Can't we use some of this $5 million to earn a little more on the side? That's the sort of thing that was missing. No oversight of the finances, not to mention no oversight of a budget. So nobody knew what the budget was. And of course, budgets are tied to planning. And nobody knew what the plans were, right, Kristine? We never knew what was coming up. There was never like an end of the year thing where Michael said, well, these are the things we accomplished, and this is what we're going to do next year. And, this is where we're going to go. Or no, it was just a drift from year to year, sort of wondering what was going to happen next. And so typically a board is going to apply more discipline to management. It will require more discipline.
That's really interesting, Kristine, because we didn't see that happening at Church Militant. And with what I was told, that they didn't have regular board meetings at all, one in a decade, over a decade. And Voris pretty much, did with the money what he wanted. So the lawsuits that he filed, again, one against Michael Parrott, one against the city of Baltimore, that did not get approved by the board. That wasn't brought to the board, from what my sources have told me, and that he spent that money. That $5 million would go quick in 2022, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it sure did. And one other thing that I just want to mention in connection with those financial decisions, of course, I don't know because I haven't seen the bylaws, but a lot of times an organization's bylaws will put a cap on that sort of thing. Like the CEO cannot make a financial decision of greater than X amount of dollars without approval from the board. So obviously they were not even operating by their bylaws, which again, and of course, everybody hates bylaws, right? Oh gosh, we got to look at the bylaws. Okay. They hate the bylaws until something goes wrong. And then everybody's looking at the bylaws, and somebody should be looking at the organization's bylaws.
Now, on the 990, is there a place where they ask the question of regular meetings or minutes of meetings?
So there's a whole section of the 990 that has to do with organizational management and policies. Did the organization contemporaneously document the meetings held or written actions undertaken during the year by the governing body and by each committee? Yes or no? So Church Militant, or no, St. Michael's Media said yes. Yes, they did document. So I don't know how they were thinking about that. Were they thinking, well, yes, we documented it, but we didn't have any meetings. So, I don't know how they were thinking about it, but they said yes, that they documented their meetings, even though your sources say they had no meetings.
Yeah. And I'm wondering what kind of a violation that would be for them if there was a complaint lodged
you can lose your tax exempt status.
Okay.
That's what's can happen is, and if it's the case that for 10 years, they have not, for an extended period of time, they've been checking the box, yes, and they have had no meetings. I think that would be taken very seriously and why? Okay. Not because somebody's a bean counter or somebody's mean or, oh, those terrible IRS people. No, it's because they're trying to protect donors. It's about the protection of people who are giving hard-earned money, sometimes sacrificially, to St. Michael's Media. They're protected. It's a form of protection. Lots of times we are not crazy about regulations. Well, their regulations exist for a reason, because somebody has, tested the boundaries and abused the privilege. So it's about protecting people. And that, I was so glad you mentioned that in your opening remarks. That's what this is about, helping people be wise in their charitable giving.
So do you think that from what your work in the nonprofit area,
mm-hmm.
Would you say it's more commonplace for CEOs like James O'Keefe, Michael Voris, to see the donor money as their own and spend it the way that they want? Because I relate to it like a taxpayer. You know how we pay all these taxes, and then we just see the government just blow through that money on stuff that doesn't have anything to do with our behalf.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I do want to say, I don't think Church Militant, I didn't see too much excessive spending. I would have to say that. I mean, okay, maybe, maybe Michael spent a little too much when he was traveling on, taking folks out to dinner. I mean, that's just common. I would not criticize him for that at all. But
what about,
pardon me?
What about in the short 5 months I was there, that evening news set changed like 5 or 6 times?
Yeah, well,
and
I mean, that could, I wouldn't, that could be, that could be. I'm not sure how much that costs. I know it did cost a lot. And of course there was all that, amazing equipment. We got that, they ordered that really high-tech switcher and all kinds of stuff. But, we were growing at the time, and I guess it made sense, but yeah. So, pardon me?
Evening news failed.
I know. Oh, I know. I still wonder if that couldn't have been redeemed somehow. But of course, I loved evening news. So, naturally, I was disappointed. I was very disappointed when it became clear, even before I was laid off. It was just clear that evening news was probably not going to survive. But
well,
yeah, so there are just all kinds of ways that people need to be protected, and that's that. But I'm honestly, I'm still surprised. It's hard to believe that they would be so cavalier.
I agree. I agree. And I guess I go back to the fact that, that we were never, ever told anything at all.
Right.
We were never, there was no, as you said, no discussion of the future, where we were going, none of that. We would just come in and all of a sudden everything's changed again. And we had no prior knowledge to anything. But going back to the spending at Church Militant, was there any area?
Kristine, may I just say a word about not knowing anything?
Yeah.
So hold that thought. The problem with not knowing anything isn't that, we need to know everything that's going on. No, that's not it, or it wasn't for me. I'm somebody who's really, I need inspiration. I need vision. I need, this is where we're going, and let's go, and we can do it. And, this is the next hill we're going to take. I mean, I have that sort of mentality. I can't remember which one of the prophets said it, but, without vision, the people, I can't remember what it is, something like the people, kind of die inside. And so when he wasn't telling us what his vision was, it was just very hard to stay motivated day in, day out. So I'm sorry, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, especially when we would get screamed at.
Yeah. Yeah. So it wasn't, it's not that we're nosy neighbors and we need to know everything. No, it wasn't that at all. It was like,
it's called leadership.
I want to know exactly.
Yeah, it's called leadership. Okay. My question was, is there any other area that you saw that you felt like the spending was just over the top? Because you started to say something and I cut you off, Kristine. I'm sorry.
No, no, honestly, I can't think of them overspent. I think they underspent on news. I do. They wanted us to produce news, by staying at our desks. I really felt like we needed to be out more, but that's expensive. You know, that's very expensive, but you can fundraise for that. You know, you could fundraise for that. Like, I mean, just like, I don't know if you are familiar with the organization. I think it's Oxfam, you know, where, oh, you can buy a goat for a family and it costs X amount of dollars, or you can buy, you know, a rural family chickens and, you know, it costs X amount of dollars. That exactly the same sort of thing could have happened at Church Militant. Do you want to underwrite one of Kristine Niles' spotlights? That's going to be a $12,000 price tag. That's probably low, actually. Do you want to underwrite, you know, an evening news, you know, a 2-minute, 30-second evening news spot? And we could have put people's names at it. You know, we could have.
There's no push for sponsorships at all. Right.
I mean, we could have done that. Oh, well, you know, I'm backseat driving now. I don't really want to fall into that, but I would just say, you know, I'm not, I don't think, I didn't see them really overspending, but I don't know. You know, I haven't seen, I don't know.
Okay. So let's go back to your article when you talked about a way that Church Militant can move forward. What's a way that they can move forward with the knowing that, you know, their two top talents, Michael Voris and Kristine Niles, are no longer there. So how can Church Militant move away from the negativity and move forward into the positive?
Well, I can't answer that question specifically, but what I can say is, as I said, the very first thing they should do is the board should resign and be replaced with some people that employees trust. Like, it would be wonderful if we could get Michael Hitchborn to temporarily come to Detroit, you know, say for 3 months, and, you know, help the staff through this, help the staff come up with the solution that you were just asking me about. What is the way forward? And then, like I was saying in my article, you know, those folks who are part of the Deposit of Faith Coalition, those are people who love Church Militant. They already are affiliated with Church Militant. If some of the men who run and women who run some of those organizations who have some wisdom, like the woman who runs the Ruth Institute, or maybe, you know, Austin Ruse, or, you know, some of those folks, if they would at least temporarily serve as board members, we only need 3, until we can get a nominating committee going, and or not we anymore, until the organization can get a nominating committee organized and new board members brought in with some thoughtfulness, okay, with some real thoughtfulness about who should be on the board, and an independent audit. I'm not sure Church Militant has ever had an independent audit, but it needs one, just to reassure everybody.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that, Kristine. Before we close, and everyone stay with me, because I do have some news that I want to share with you before we close. Do you have any parting words, Kristine? Any words of wisdom?
Well, I'm just very sorry. You know, of course, this is what's happening here. It unfortunately is not unusual. Now, the fact that the board never met, I've never heard of such a thing ever before. But the fact that you have a dynamic founder who has, you know, sort of taken over the whole running of the organization, that's so common. And so you need a strong chairman. You know, you need a strong chairman to balance out somebody like that. That's why it would be very crucial. And then I just, you know, once a person said to me how much they were grieving over the lost opportunity, you know, that Church Militant had such potential, and to see it potentially collapse is tragic.
Yes, it is, and this is hard on the supporters of Church Militant, all the people that loved Michael Voris and Kristine Niles, and the whole evening news team and Church Militant. I mean, the viewers are going through a grieving process about all of this too. I mean, this just doesn't hurt inside a Church Militant. This hurts all these people that were emotionally invested in the Church Militant over the years. And, you know, I was one of them. And so, you know, there's a lot of hurt going around right now. Everyone needs prayers, and we need to, obviously, we need to pray for Michael Voris, that he really gets the help that he needs. I'll just say that. So, Kristine, thank you for coming on. Would you stay in the studio while I wrap up?
Oh, I'd love to. Thank you, Kristine. You've done a great job. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Kristine. Okay, everyone. I want to address a couple of things, and that is some of the commenters think that there is some kind of coup going on outside of Church Militant. No, the Vatican Mafia is not responsible for Michael Voris's ousting from Church Militant. No, it's not some other outside force that I saw in the comments that is putting pressure on the board. No, here's what happened, and this is the news. I have verified this with multiple sources. And I also want you to understand, I did not seek information. When Kristine, the Wednesday before Kristine Niles put out her resignation, I started getting bombarded with direct messages from Catholic influencers wanting to know what I know about the resignation of Kristine Niles and Michael Voris. So I told you that in the other video. Well, in the last 48 hours, I have had ex-employees come forward, employees come forward, outside forces come forward. All of these people have come forward and have thanked me for my video and have also shared more information with me. So, you know, that's why I'm so passionate about how many of the people inside a Church Militant that have been hurt by all of this. And here's what happened. So this was verified by two different sources. And that is, and I told you in my other video, the board had to have been, their back had to have been up against the wall, because they would have never taken action, because they're enablers. They're all enablers. The staff gave them the evidence of Michael Voris's private life. This was substantiated by two different sources. And they sent a letter to the board, an email to the board, stating why Voris needs to leave, or they were going to walk out. So that's what happened, folks. It wasn't the Vatican. It wasn't the Democrats. It was Michael Voris own demise. He did it to himself. And there were things that were found out that Michael was doing. And I'll just point to one other thing because it's been out there for about a year now. And that is a photo of Michael that he took, put it in the company Dropbox. There were many of them, but one got leaked of the picture of Michael in gym shorts, and that's it. And those pictures were in the company Dropbox. I do not know who leaked that picture to the public, but it was leaked. And that is disturbing behavior, folks. So I just ask you this question. If one of the ladies had a photo of hers in a scanty bikini in the company Dropbox, what do you think would happen? I mean, think about this. What do you think would happen? That would be a morality clause breach. And why would someone do that? Well, it's bait to see who will bite. That's all it is. It's bait. So when I say that I'm trying to give Michael all the benefit of the doubt, but he didn't give the bishops and the priests a benefit of the doubt. And I wish Michael will get the help he needs. I think we should all pray for him. We should all pray for him. I do not wish him anything but the very best. Isn't that what we're supposed to do as Catholics? But to deny this stuff, to deny this behavior, won't help Michael. It won't help Church Militant if we all go, no, 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 that didn't happen. It's the Democrats. It's the Vatican. No, it is not. It's the truth, ladies and gentlemen. And it pains me as well because I was a fan of Church Militant. Obviously, I went to work for them. But I'm not going to be told to unsee what I saw when I worked there. It's a dysfunctional workplace all the way around. And there's a lot of good people there that did their very best to try to do the best for Michael Voris. And that's the real tragedy, is they're the ones that will get hurt by all of this. So God bless you all. And remember, eternal life is forever. Got a plan? Bye-bye.